Chinese RPG developer bans streamers from discussing the Chinese gaming industry.
Do you know about this?
I do.
Okay, yeah.
Black Myth Wukong, a single-player action RPG, is now the fastest to hit 1 million concurrent players on Steam after launching on August 20th. However, the game's developer, Game Science, sparked controversy by granting some streamers early access, but also sending a bizarre list of restrictions on how they could talk about the game. Streamers were instructed not to include politics, violence,
In a game about violence.
nudity, feminist propaganda, fetishization, and other content that instigates negative discourse. They were also told to avoid potential trigger words like quarantine, isolation, and COVID-19.
Amazing.
The developer also explicitly told them not to discuss anything about China's game industry policies.
Like probably the ones that you were just reading.
Not everyone who was given early access to the game received these instructions. Mainstream outlets like Polygon and Kotaku received far more standard review embargoes. Discussion question is this just a cultural gap or is something far worse going on? I mean, I think the thing that I had flagged for the team for discussion here was, I think the only difference here, the only reason we're having this conversation is because the quiet part was said out loud. I mean, Chinese, well, more accurately, CCP influence on Western media has been rampant for many, many, many years at this point. Anytime you see a film that has any kind of Chinese backing or Chinese funding behind
this is straight up just developed in China game, though. This is like, okay.
But it's effectively, if it's gaining mainstream appeal in the West, it's effectively like Western media.
No, I just the thing that you're talking about is.
Give me a sec, though. Okay. I'll get there. Okay. Basically, if you see any kind of Chinese funding going into a film or going into a game, I mean, have you noticed between the 90s and now how rarely the villains of a film are ethnically Chinese,
and how often they like travel there, or there's like major themes around it, or something like that. Yeah, and it's interesting because it doesn't even necessarily just have to be funding, because North American companies are also finding that the Chinese audiences are quite sensitive to, in both ways that you could grade sensitivity. So they're also very positively sensitive to, if the heroes travel to China, it's much more likely that people will go watch the film.
Right. Yep.
Like little things like, which is not like, it's a different form of, it's still sensitivity. Anyways, but they're very reflective to like, is China in a good light or a bad light?
And so these conversations about things that should or should not be included in these films are absolutely taking place in back rooms.
Yeah.
Over financial deals for, backing of the production of media pieces or whatever else. The only difference here is that in this case, it was entirely developed, in China with these sensibilities in mind, and reviewers and streamers ended up with sort of the same kind of guidelines that you might find when you're instead, scripting your big budget film or whatever the case may be. So do I think this is good? No. What is feminist propaganda from the perspective of the CCP? What does that mean?
You're wearing a pink shirt, Linus.
Yeah, I know, right?
Banned.
Sure, exactly. What is that? Avoiding trigger words like isolation. Like if you want to tell me to avoid a trigger word like child okay, sure, let's avoid that. That has trauma associated with it. But no, I'm not gonna ignore a trigger word like quarantine. That's a thing that happens. We had to quarantine our cats. If I'm gonna,
I think so. I think it's those ones. I should say the quarantine, isolation, COVID-19. Those ones like kind of actually do make sense to me, because if people are just gonna like spam the heck out of something when this game is playing, the whole China virus thing is very likely going to come out. So I think they were just like, let's not do that. Those three, I kind of get it. Let's not talk about this for a moment.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, I can't look at those outside of all the other things that they were told not to talk about.
Yeah, I hear that. I'm just really isolating, just quarantine isolation, COVID-19, because it's like we're talking about a video game right now.
It's particularly stupid to me that I'm just a little confused by the whole thing, because my understanding is a lot of blood gets like censored in China in Chinese games, and so it makes sense that they've got this guideline to not
turn it white.
To not talk about violence.
Which isn't great. Not a good decision.
I don't know. It could be good for some people, Luke.
I mean, oh, man.
Oh, it's everywhere.
What is it? Ghost ectoplasm? Is
yeah,
what it
sure.
actually is?
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I can't get Dan saying, "Oh, it's everywhere."
Yeah, that's great. Anyway,
that's what a lot of people say, actually.
Anyway, should we be upset about CCP sensibilities making their way into our media and into our culture? Yes.
Yeah.
But it's not new. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't continue to be upset about it.
And this is why companies like Tencent own a little bit of everything.
So that they have a little bit of influence into everything. Yeah. All right. Should we switch to... except us, by the way.
Yeah.
There is absolutely no CCP ownership stake in Linus Media Group or any of its affiliated companies. Let's go.
Yeah.
So yeah. CCP. Cool. I mean, for that matter, I'm not a huge fan of... many national governments.
Everything sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Linus is now banned in China. I'm pretty sure Linus and I both gave up on ever going back there again a little while ago.